All right. While
Ken's
finding a question, Riley, you got to give up caffeine forever or sugar forever.
That's tough because I'm a coffee guy.
Yeah. And everybody's a sugar guy.
Yeah. Ooh. I think I'd have to give up sugar. Coffee's good.
You'd have to give up sugar.
Plus, it's bad for you. If you can't have it, then you're like, oh, well, shoot, I can't have sugar.
That's true. That's true.
I can't give up sugar just because it's there, It like stares at you in the cupboard,
Nothing does me better than the times that I give up sugar. I mean, I just feel like I'm on top of the world. And I find that I don't crash from the coffee that I drink. Like when I have sugary coffee drinks, I'll crash from them. But if I don't have sugar in them, I mean, I'll feel a lowering, but I don't like crash,
Are you just trying to elaborately pull me into your no sugar diet? Is that what this is?
I'm not on a
it's
no
like
sugar
a pyramid
diet
scheme.
Because if you go no sugar, then I get an extra $20 every month. No,
Big Caffeine sends Nicholas a $20 check.
No, dude. Big Caffeine is in it with Big Sugar because when you put caffeine,
you're gonna love this question.
I am gonna love it. Also,
Nick's just he's gonna be all wound up.
Mr. Krabs?
No, he just loves this kind of conversation piece.
Yeah,
like this is like a top 1% type of question for
all
Nicholas.
right, before we start though, Ken, no sugar or no caffeine?
No sugar and no caffeine.
Also, be careful. A lot of times when I edit on the video, your face is like totally covered by the microphone. And you have these like magic points, but then there's no face attached to it. So I usually crop my face in so I sound like a genius. Is
that better?
Yeah, that looks great.
Okay. No caffeine or no sugar? No caffeine.
Really? Keeping the sugar.
I love sugar, man.
Yeah, me too. I'm going.
There's no Nestles, man.
Yeah, no Nestles.
No sugar, no
ice cream.
Nestles.
Psh, life without ice cream. Can you imagine that?
I try not to.
I mean, think about how many people are lactose intolerant. They know they're going to be like teetering on the edge of death by diarrhea if they eat this ice cream. And what do they still do?
Have you ever had old school
ice cream? They still eat the ice cream. It's just one of the Earth's greatest gifts.
That kills people.
One of life's great mysteries.
Yeah, people who are allergic to it. I mean, think of anything else that people are allergic to,
Yeah.
Peanut butter's pretty good. You don't see anybody with a peanut allergy.
There's something about, think about.
Of course, they like die by asphyxiation, so it just
it's a little different than intestinal discomfort.
Burn through 6 pounds of toilet paper.
Think about the trillions of dollars that have been spent on these three items put together: sugar, coffee, cream, or milk, or dairy.
And then there's people that start companies where that's all they sell.
We sell other things. Ham and cheese croissants. There's no sugar in those, I think.
Just pelletized caffeine that you put on there.
Yeah. And pelletized sugar in cubes. Sugar cubes. We put sugar cubes on our ham and cheese croissants. Knoxville's just getting like morbidly overweight. Nobody can figure out why.
But they have all this new energy. Everybody's about those ham and cheese croissants, but man, I feel good afterwards.
I don't know how true this is, but I heard that the Enlightenment age is heavily correlated with when coffee was introduced to Europe.
You've said that before.
I can't remember where I even heard it.
I think you dreamed it.
I totally made it up. Buy coffee. All right. Welcome back to the Prairie Farm Podcast. Coffee Time Wednesday. I'm your favorite host, Nicholas Lirio, with favorite co-host, Kent Boucher.
What's up?
And your favorite co-host to the co-host, Riley Rosendahl.
What's up?
That's close.
He's just getting there.
He's going up to
It's a slow burn.
Riley gave birth to 10 bison this weekend. I'm going to say it just that way.
Not quite.
Tell the story about the one the first time you got to touch one of your live bison.
Well, that's not the first time, but that was the first time.
Oh yeah, that time when that horn went into your rib cage.
Had a cow give birth right by the fence, and sometimes animals, when they give birth by a fence, they leave their offspring outside the fence, especially if they're a new mother, which this one was.
Okay,
so that was.
So how'd you get the calf into the fence?
Well, you slide it under the fence.
Oh, okay. Right in front of the mom. You were just handling her calf.
Well, so I got lucky. So she put up a big game, in the huffing and puffing,
Did she do the like scraper?
Yeah,
she pawed the dirt.
Oh man!
So I called in backup, and so my backup came, and then of course she like ran away, and so I'm like, oh, she was really scary 5 minutes ago. You should have seen it. Yeah, okay. No, I
brought me all the way out here for this. Okay,
just picked up the calf and slid him under, and she took him with him. So
well, good.
Man,
how quick are they on their feet after
when they're first born? Not at all.
Wow.
Like within hours or?
Oh yeah, they're up fast, but they need. I'm guessing this one hadn't had its first drink of milk yet. It was kind of slow and lethargic, but it's probably under 2 or 3 hours old. It was still
wow.
wet. So
start a petition for Riley being required to wear GoPros when he works with his bison. Like full like
also, I think that would have
mandated
been
by
the
the
perfect
governor.
time for Asian cowboy. I think you should have called Nick as your backup.
a 25-pound calf.
I said this on the podcast the other day when you had to walk out with a phone call, but so I was planting a field 2 weeks ago, whatever. Then when I got back, my wife was like, "Oh my goodness,
I heard
my
this.
husband works outside. He's so strong. He's so amazing." And she's like sarcastically doing it, and then she's like, "But in all seriousness, whenever you're riding a tractor, I always imagine you're like 2 hands on the wheel and talking to yourself. I'm an Asian cowboy. I can do this. Asian cowboy Nicholas on the job. Yeah, just talking to myself the whole time. Call myself Asian cowboy. Man, crazy.
I like it.
Well, Kent, what do you got for us? Got a little
Yeah, we got a
listener
great
question.
Great question here from Carter. What's up, Carter? And I've talked with Carter in the past. A good guy. Carter says, "Hey guys, there are certain areas near where I live that are rapidly expanding." Riley's got to go check on something here. Where I live that are rapidly expanding both with new commercial buildings and residential subdivisions. We thought there was a customer, and it's the Porta John guy.
Ken made me get out just so I could look at the Porta
No,
John truck.
I think you need to go out there and just stand there a little bit longer.
You need to supervise the Porta John truck.
It's a sensory experience.
We better get back to the question here.
All right, should we tell? We won't name who, but we had a summer helper here once who was in the Porta John when the Porta John extraction began. And turns out they don't need to open the door to get her done.
So,
they go down the little chimney.
but there's like a suction effect that they've got going on, so he almost got sucked right in that toilet.
Oh man, we will leave it there.
He came bursting into the office like, "Man, I almost got sucked into that."
I don't know that I've ever seen Carol laugh so hard as when the victim of that was telling the story. All right, anyways. There are certain areas near where I live that are rapidly expanding both with new commercial buildings and residential subdivisions. To do this, developers are buying the land needed for their projects from the farmers that were there at a steep price. My question for you is, what is or is there a point where it is worth it from a conservation standpoint to part ways with your land for new development, knowing that the money received could be used for larger scale conservation projects? This is definitely Nick's kind of question here.
Oh, yeah.
One example of this was 50 acres of farmland that was purchased for $7.5 million in one of these areas that Carter's talking about. If I owned 50 acres that I had taken care of the best way I knew how to for conservation, it would seem unthinkable to part ways with it, knowing the land would become a shopping center or subdivision. However, $7.5 million could go a long way in obtaining larger quantities of new land and implementing practices good for the land, water, and air. I've been thinking about this and am interested to hear your thoughts. Thanks for everything you do. Keep up the good work, Carter. Thank you, Carter.
You know, it's interesting. I was just at a customer's place today, and I need to make sure I keep it confidential. There was a development attempt in his area right next to a farm that he owned and has owned for quite some time. But he was the first generation to own it in his family, so it's not like a long-standing...
Like a family farm, like a century farm.
Century farm. You know, so But everybody else, all of his neighbors had signed the contract. And this was like 5 years ago. He was the one person who wouldn't sign the contract, and it totally fell through. And he explained the story. He told me how many millions and millions of dollars he was offered. But he also said that afterwards, a bunch of his neighbors came up and said, thank you. My family pressured me into it. My neighbors pressured me into it, or I didn't realize how bad the contract was at the time. And this guy works in the financial world, so he understood it fully. And he knew he could make a ton of money, and he knew he could buy another farm, but he had put tons of effort into this farm. And he's in the latter trimester of his life. He didn't need the money. Right? Would it have boosted him? Yeah, probably. He could have gotten some new toys
way
and
of
stuff.
using the term trimester, and I'm kind of hung up on it right now.
The third trimester.
Yeah, when you have kids, I'm sure trimester means pregnancy, but to me, like schools do trimester. That was the most recent trimester thing for me.
I have 4 children. Keep that in mind.
Yeah. More times than you went to college. You have. So that was really interesting. But on a general rule of thumb, absolutely. To me, and I might get some hate for this, urban sprawl isn't nothing, but people love talking about how much land urban sprawl is taking. Dude, look.
I like talking about that.
85% of Iowa's land is farmed, right? And then there's a bunch of other chunks of it. Urban sprawl does not create 15% of it, and it doesn't grow at the rate that it grew when Iowa was first growing, right? Because those old houses get refilled when someone leaves them, and we're about to have a generation of handing off assets, house and land and all those other things. I say absolutely sell that if it makes sense. Obviously, if you've got a century farm, or you've got like a deep connection to it, and you've put a lot of effort into it, or it means a lot to you and a lot of your family, I understand that it's not like a guaranteed. But in terms of like conscience, if I felt good about selling it and then going somewhere else and using it for conservation, and I actually would use it for conservation, I wouldn't blink twice. Like I wouldn't at all, because if you're getting 10 times or 15, or I've seen literally 100 times the amount you could use it for farmland because someone could put a commercial building there, by golly, go buy literally 100 times more acres and do something impactful with them. I think for sure.
Riley, what do you think?
I saw that coming. I would say the same thing, but with a caveat. If you value your land, let's say you bought 50 acres on the edge or 10 miles away from a town, and over your lifetime, the town grows towards it or something like that. If I had a 50-acre parcel and it looked like it was going to get completely bought out around, and I cared about wildlife, I would feel very different about it than plants. I think plants have more resilience in that regard, but if you have a population of birds or deer, and all the other habitat around it disappears, your odds of maintaining a healthy population on this tiny little oasis is less and less.
That's a good point.
Your habitat potential shrinks.
Yeah.
What is there will be there, but
yeah. And also, if you have like one
less.
of the last remnants in Iowa, and let's say it's 5 acres, which is a pretty big remnant, then we're having a different conversation. But unless, I'd say there's a small percentage of things that could make me feel like the money couldn't be impacted elsewhere for conservation, assuming you actually use it for that.
Yeah, I definitely see Carter's point here. I think if you had a remnant there, that would totally flip. I think sure, it's your land. You can go ahead and sell, but to do so with a clear conscience, knowing that, if you had another Bell Bowl prairie circumstance, you're not going to have a clean conservation conscience. You can't if you do something like that. So I think that would change things. But if it was truly something that you would just like, there was basically, there was no native seed bank left. other than lamb's quarter and some
Smart
native
weed.
pig weed and smart weed. I think you have to look at the greater good. I think Riley brings up such a great point with the fragmentation of habitat for wildlife. It's just, there are some species that do very well in an urban setting. Deer, coyotes, raccoons, squirrels, things like that. Some definitely songbirds are able to utilize good habitat in an urban environment because they can move so easily. But some other species like maybe wild turkeys or other large mammals outside of, we're just thinking in Iowa here, but think of bears and elk or bison. In some places it's done for them. It's just like here in Iowa, we can't have elk, period, right? There literally is not a big enough contiguous piece of habitat for a elk population of any size to permanently dwell here. And like you said, Nicholas, most of our state is still rural farmland. And so it shows you that there are some species that just, if all you have is a 50-acre prairie surrounded by concrete jungle, it's not going to have that much value for some species. So in that regard, this made me think of the Iowa Wetland Mitigation Bank that Kevin Griggs, a previous podcast guest, came on here and he helped set that up. This idea of where farmers have 1 acre of wetland on their farm, and they have to farm around it. And there's basically zero habitat value there. They probably go in and mow it off every spring, or every dry part of the summer when they can actually get in there, right?
Yeah.
And there's just doing very little benefit to the landscape. Well, then let's offset that acre somewhere else where they can pay to restore an acre of wetland on a larger scale somewhere else. So it's kind of a similar concept, right? Yeah. You're doing the trade-off. Oh, I can only have 50 acres of habitat here. Why not take that money and go put 50 acres out there where it's never going to be developed around there? So, there's ways of looking at it, like that as well. But overall, I think you just got to look at what the circumstances are. If it is chances are if you see examples of that in a city area, it's probably the Century Farm thing, like you talked about. Our family's owned this land for X number of years. We're not going anywhere, and that's fine too. I think you can also look into maybe working some stipulations into the deal. Riley and I, the day we actually met each other was when we were at a field trip for the North American Prairie Conference several years ago. And when we went over to that big remnant, I don't remember if
the Reichelt area is
yeah.
what it is. Yeah. Reichelt unit.
Near Kellogg, Iowa, which if you're anywhere near there, go check it out this summer. It's like 30 some acres of remnant prairie. But when that land was donated to the state, the owner said, I want this to be what was it? He wanted it to be forest land.
It was returned to the state forester to be put into forest land.
Right. Yep. Yeah. And they had to find a way. Unfortunately, they found out that the owner didn't know that it had this remnant value, and so they had to do some like real technical working to, if they were going to get this land, they had to follow the wishes, the legal wishes that were recorded, legally in the transfer, that this will happen. So maybe if you did, have a remnant on there, you could say, yep, I'll sell you all 50. However, these 5 acres here, they're remnant prairie. It deal's dead. Not happening. If you guys
won't legally commit to not touching it for 1,000 years.
Right. Exactly. And I think it's also a good thing too, Carter, if like you have a piece of land that you just can't imagine yourself parting with. I think this is a hard thing, that it's a hard part of the conversation. And it goes into just, land transfer, farm transfer. It's kind of the sad reality, but we have kids that have no interest, do not have an interest, do not have a connection. It's just they're not wired that way, right? And they're going to sell it anyways. And so maybe you can work into your will, like, hey, I'm going to hang on to this, but once I'm gone, come back and ask my kids, because maybe they'll want to sell, or something like that, and then your kids can have the big payoff or whatever. But there's different ways that you can look at it. I don't think in the case that you mentioned, Carter, there, as long as there's not like any priceless gem of, which would be a remnant of conservation value, I think you're probably trading something that's inevitably going to become part of the concrete jungle after you're out of the way, and you're able to do more longer lasting good elsewhere with the money. So that's how I would kind of look at it.
Because if you got stupid money for a piece of land, you could take just a section of that stupid money and put a really nice 40-acre prairie together, donate it to some sort of trust or Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. I don't know if they actually own any land or if they just take care of it. That's another trust. But, there are organizations like that will basically keep your wishes going. And then you still have plenty of money to buy Polaris Rangers, for you to drive around or whatever you want to do. If someone's offering you, like if it's a little more, I understand you don't want it. But if someone's offering you stupid money for something, I would do it. And it would basically take a really rare remnant or something like that to outweigh the monetary value and the good you could do elsewhere.
Well, one other thing to keep in mind too is if it's going to be surrounded by residences instead of factory buildings or something like that, you're going to have to compete with all of the vegetation that is going to be undoubtedly planted. All the smooth brome,
great point.
All the Bermuda grass, all the flowers from various garden stores,
miscanthus, pampas grass
that are not. So you could end up losing it anyway due to lack of management or lack of management ability.
And from a prairie standpoint too, you might lose your ability to use fire to manage.
Exactly. Your management tools will be limited.
It's a great point. Do you? I think Riley, you saw what my topic was about. Did you see? Yeah, don't say it. Kent, do you know what my topic is about?
I do not.
All right. So I'm going to paint this picture for everyone listening, plus Kent. It's you're growing up, 1931, and I'm just shooting from.
Are you talking about Kent? Yeah.
Not even. Neither of my grandfathers were alive in
1931. It was Kent's 10th birthday.
No. You're growing up. It's hot as could be.
I still
outside.
have lower cholesterol than you too.
Yeah, that's true, dude. Dude, I made a Facebook post the other day. I was like, what do you consider a successful life? And Ken's thing was your cholesterol going down as you get older. He's so proud of that.
Oh, that is a lifetime flex.
Yeah.
I'm part of the 0.09% of Americans who can make that claim.
Their cholesterol went down after 30. Dude, so you're growing up. You're visiting your grandpa's farm. Your family members are all out there. Your siblings, extended family. You guys just had a big old barbecue.
How old am I in this scenario?
You're 9. You're 9 years old.
I'm a kid. Okay.
And the grandparents just handed out bowls of ice cream. You ate your bowls of ice cream.
This is supposed to be in 1931. Is that part of the story?
No.
Okay.
It's summer.
Better eat it fast. There's no freezer.
So whenever you were 9 years old, and yep, it's melting. The ice cream's melting. You and your family, everybody's got sticky hands. The sun is not down, but it's going down. It's starting to get really big on the horizon. It's getting kind of pink with those beautiful Iowa sunsets, which if you're not in Iowa, Iowa has incredible sunsets.
You don't
Unreal.
You don't get the pink sunset though until the sun is officially past the horizon.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's beautiful nonetheless.
It's too bright.
Ken, you're ruining the visual.
I guess we had enough smoke from Canada, and you might.
You're like Sheldon from The Big Bang Theory when he was a kid in school. He's like, well, actually, Professor.
Yeah, people love those kind of people, don't they?
Yeah, very easy to be around. And you're hanging out, you're running around, maybe you're playing tag or whatever you're doing. You're running around with dogs, and then the sun goes down, and it's starting to go from pink to that like dark blue, not black, but dark blue. And now all of a sudden, all of these flashings, all over the place.
Oh,
Little yellow lights.
I had this. I know where you're going with this.
All over the place. Not synchronized, but beautiful. Like, it's unreal. You're looking out over the horizon into a field, and they're just everywhere. Our little friends, the Fireflies.
Yep.
And I would call them our little friends, but we are their mortal nemesis because they currently are being decimated. Several of the species of the, I believe, 15 firefly species in North America, several of them are being considered for the Endangered Species Act, which means they probably should be on there, but there's always pushback on putting things on
Really
the endangered species.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep. They are. I mean, have you looked around recently?
Yeah. Well, I just had this thought last night. I got back from a weekend of travel, and I was staying out behind my house in a place where, when I was 9 years old, you would have been able to look across that yard and see hundreds of fireflies. And
probably tens of thousands.
I was struck by how I was seeing, oh, there's one. Yep, there's another one.
Yeah.
And it did kick off a deep sadness. Like,
yeah. I was shocked how sad I was. I was walking through town the other day, and I saw one fly. And my wife and I, we do late evening walks a lot in town. We get really good talks in that time. It's like a nice time to connect. And I just saw one flying right in front of me, and it was light in its light. And I was looking around. I couldn't find one other single one. And it was probably on the later end of when they would have been out, but still, it was like, I was sad.
Yeah.
I was like sad. There was like something, I think it was sad for the firefly, which sounds kind of stupid, but more than that, it like triggered a very nostalgic, impressionable memory from when I was a kid running around in the yard with ice cream on my hands. And you know what I mean? You're with your cousins or whoever. And then there's fireflies all over the place. And you don't really think of it, but even as a kid, you're like, wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know? So 3 major reasons that they're dissipating. You guys know what they are?
Well, I think I saw Tabitha made a post on this last week. I think it was Tabitha. I think number 1 was just loss of habitat.
Yep.
So
that is number 1.
So prairie species would be big for that.
Mm-hmm. And they feed on, they're carnivorous. So they feed on like little slugs and snails when they're young.
Yeah.
And so they need the thatch on the ground from that prairie creates and big broadleafs to allow for those species to live under there. That way they can feed on them. Yeah, it's an issue. They need soil that holds moisture, and we don't do that here anymore.
Yeah.
I'll let Riley guess the other.
I was going to say mowing and spraying.
Pesticides.
Yeah.
Insecticide. Yeah.
Yep.
Lack of thatch and spraying is probably.
Any guess on the third?
I would wonder if that would be. I mean, you could probably say habitat fragmentation as well. So the habitat that is there is split apart. But also, I've often wondered, just vehicles on the road.
Interesting.
Just how many bugs are slaughtered that way.
I mean, a huge percentage of them. You know, I don't know. It's obviously not over 50%, but like you kill a lot of bugs.
Significant,
yeah. Mm-hmm. But no, it is light pollution.
Oh yeah, I did read that
because they can't talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
They're sending signals to each other, and it's actually it was an article written by the Dark Sky Association talking about the importance, and obviously fireflies are the most popular ones, but light pollution is an issue for a lot of insects. So first is loss of habitat. The second is pesticides, and then it would be light pollution. The Xerxes Society has a program, Bring Back the Fireflies, which basically goes through some basic steps on how we can help. But it's the same. It's just plant natives and don't spray if you don't need to. And it's kind of interesting. The original thing that I saw was from The Guardian. The Guardian has been tracking it for like the last 10 years. They've had,
Wow.
because I started looking at their posts and they were linking other articles that they had written. There was like 15 of them. So there was one every 8 to 12 months that they kind of just keep coming back to this Firefly thing. And then something else that I thought was fascinating was not just that they're disappearing, but like way less people care than you would think. You know, they have worse percentage numbers than monarch butterflies, which are like drastic percentage numbers, but people don't care about it. You know, so you don't hear nearly as much about it.
I think it goes back to I can't remember who we were talking to. We've done quite a few podcasts lately, but somewhere in the conversation it came up, people need to take a look around. You know what I mean? Like we get so distracted by not just cell phones, just everything, right?
Yeah.
Go. You know, we're at home for such brief amounts of time before we got to be to the next obligation or whatever. We don't have enough. You've used the word many times, margin or pause in our life to be sitting there and looking at the nighttime sky like we were when we were 9 years old. And so if you don't really take notice of it, I don't think it's truly that people don't care. I think most people, especially from the Midwest, you know, where fireflies were, you know, everywhere, and you would get your little mason jar out and go and collect them and try and make like a little firefly lamp that you could
That's where
put
they
on
all
your
went.
porch. Or
Kent killed them in his jar.
No, we always let them. We always let them go. But you know, there was like that was just part of being a kid, right? But so I think most people probably do have some level of attachment to them. But I would think that it's not because they don't care. I think it's because they probably don't take the time to see it. You know?
Yeah, man.
Well, anecdotally, this stems from me being cheap. Those of you who don't know, I'm a Dutchman. I had a yard light that was really, really crazy bright, and it went out about 2 years ago. And instead of replacing it, I just went, oh, what does it matter?
Yeah.
And that's when I started seeing fireflies again. When I didn't have a yard light and I left 30 feet of my backyard unmowed.
Yeah.
Since then, I've seen, it's not you know, our childhood population,
Right,
but
yeah.
I've actually noticed more of them.
Yeah. The few that I was seeing, strangely enough, last night were kind of right over my big backyard prairie. And obviously they can fly wherever they want at night, but I thought that was kind of, I took note of that while I was standing there. I was like, maybe they're using it. So yeah, I think it's something that we should pay attention to and look at making some of those things. You know, sometimes we have those security lights or things like that. Maybe if we could turn those off or when they do burn out, you know, because a lot of those things last like 10 years.
Yeah.
Just leave them out, you know, leave your porch lights off, things like that.
Yeah, imagine like I was watching this show, and it was kind of like an apocalyptic show, and they were in Tokyo, and everything went out, like all the lights and everything, and they were on top of a skyscraper, and one of them was talking about how terrible it was, and the other one just looked up in the sky. I was like, man, look at that. For the first time ever, they saw like a bunch of stars, and I wonder, sometimes I want to just go to the blackness of like Nebraska, western Nebraska, just to like see what the stars are like out there. You know?
Yeah.
See what you're missing.
One of my family's favorite things to do, like around August, late August, how do you say it? The Perseid meteor shower, which happens around that time, I believe every year. We'll go out to the darkest part of our yard, the barnyard there, and we'll like lay down like a big quilt or something, and we'll all just lay flat on our backs and try and count shooting stars, meteorites, right? And well, it's only a meteorite if it hits the Earth, the asteroids and meteors, and you know, be like, wow, that was a big one, you know. And the kids just eat that up. They love it, and we invite my grandparents out to do it and stuff. And I don't know, it's just like a very simple, free thing to do. I actually got that tip from there's a guy who I was camping with once. My family was camping with their family friends, and he invited a bunch of us out to go do that. And and we also were looking for satellites and things like that. It's just like it's a way to get an appreciation for, all aspects of what it takes to make our planet work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just a bummer. I didn't even look up like if they're a cornerstone to our ecology or anything. I was just so sad that they were going.
Yeah.
Big bummer for me. But what's not a big bummer? Everyone who bought
sugar and caffeine.
Sugar, dude, those are good things. They're good for all humanity.
That was kind of a downer. We need a few uppers right now.
Yeah. Hey, everyone who ordered merch for conservation, thank you so much. We've got it in the works, so we should, just like promised, should be mailing out the first week of July. That was a huge deal. We'll be I'll give you an exact percentage, but we will be giving 50% or probably more to BHA. And then, secondly, this is important. Pete Uralde called us out, said we talked about stiff goldenrod, and then we made a passing joke about it causing allergies and people not wanting it because of allergies. And he schooled me in an email. This man, very kind, awesome man. But he said, nope, stiff goldenrod, the kind of pollen that it makes has to be brought by or maybe it's just goldenrod in general, has to be brought by pollinators. It can't just like float in the air. And so I emailed him, and I was like, well, what was it? And he was like, it was probably like ragweed, some sort of ditchweed.
Similar time frame,
Yeah.
Ragweed season is usually later on.
I don't get allergies in that later season. I get them. I'm at the tail end of it now. I get late May, early June. They kick. It's when brome is pollinating.
Smooth brome pollination season.
I mean, it's like half of Iowa.
Well, you have a serious allergy to Indian grass too.
That I developed. I'd never had allergies in my life, and then
we were working
2 or 3 years ago.
Pollinating too.
Yep, we were in the field while it was like the sacks of pollen were hanging off the Indian grass. I mean, if you're ever gonna have a reaction, it was then. And me and another kid that was working with us in the field, we broke out in terrible hives. Yeah. And I had to go. It was miserable. My eyes were like swelling shut on the drive home. It was terrible. And ever since then, I've been getting allergies in the spring.
Next time it happens, we'll record a coffee time so that way Nick, you can see what he looks like on the reels.
Get the full picture.
Oh my goodness.
Nick, you got the topic this week, right?
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget, emails, questions, social@theprairiefarm.com, and we will talk to you again next time.